Yo, what's up everybody? Trevor Noah here, and let's talk about something real, something heavy, something we can't ignore. The transatlantic slave trade, specifically its impact on Ghana, once known as the Gold Coast. Gold Coast sounds beautiful, right? But it hides a dark history. Ghana was a major hub for the slave trade, where millions were shipped across the Atlantic. Before colonialism, Ghana had vibrant kingdoms and diverse cultures, known for its gold and rich resources. But in the 15th century, European powers arrived, hungry for wealth and labor. And so began a dark chapter in Ghana's history. This was about power, control, and dehumanization. Europeans saw Africa as a source of free labor. They didn't see the humanity in the people they captured. They saw only profit margins and plantation yields, and that, my friends, is the tragedy of the transatlantic slave trade. The year was 1471. The Portuguese landed on the shores of what is now Ghana. They were looking for gold and ivory, but they found something more valuable: human beings. The Portuguese saw an opportunity to exploit Africa's people. Thus began Ghana's painful entanglement with the transatlantic slave trade. Initially, the trade was small-scale. They traded goods for gold and a few enslaved Africans. But as demand for sugar exploded in Europe, so did the demand for labor. And guess who they thought would be perfect for the job? Yep, Africans. Trading for enslaved people was more profitable than gold, so they built coastal forts and trading posts. These forts became prisons for captured Africans awaiting their fate across the Atlantic. Now let's talk about how this whole capturing and trading thing went down, because it's messed up on so many levels. See, Europeans weren't out here in the African bush rounding up people themselves. They were way too cowardly for that. Instead, they relied on a system of divide and conquer, pitting African kingdoms against each other, exploiting existing rivalries and tensions. European traders would supply African rulers with guns, alcohol, and other goods in exchange for enslaved people. These rulers, blinded by greed or desperate to protect their own power, would then wage war on neighboring kingdoms, capturing their own people and selling them into slavery. It was a vicious cycle of betrayal, violence, and greed. The methods of capture were brutal. Slave raids, often carried out at night, would terrorize entire villages. Men, women, and children were snatched from their homes, shackled and marched to the coast. Many died along the way from exhaustion, disease, or the sheer brutality of their captors. Those who survived the journey faced a fate far worse than death. A life of forced labor, degradation, and dehumanization. Okay, picture this. You're standing on the coast of Ghana, the sun beating down, the waves crashing against the shore, but instead of feeling the sand between your toes and the ocean breeze in your hair, you're surrounded by towering stone walls, the stench of human waste, and the cries of your fellow captives. Welcome to a slave fort, one of the most tangible and chilling reminders of the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade. These forts, strategically placed along the coast, served as holding pens for enslaved Africans before their journey across the Atlantic. Cape Coast Castle, Elmina Castle, Christiansborg Castle, these names etched in stone are synonymous with suffering, despair, and the resilience of the human spirit. Inside these forts, conditions were beyond inhumane. Thousands of Africans were crammed into dark, airless dungeons, often chained together with little food, water, or sanitation. Disease was rampant, and death was a constant companion. The dungeons of these forts stand as silent witnesses to the unimaginable cruelty inflicted upon millions of innocent souls. Section 5. The Middle Passage. A journey of death and despair. Now let's talk about the Middle Passage. The journey across the Atlantic. Imagine being crammed into the hold of a ship, packed like sardines, chained to the floor, unable to stand, to breathe, to move, the air thick with the stench of vomit, sweat, and human waste, the cries of the sick and dying echoing through the darkness. This, my friends, was the reality for millions of Africans during the Middle Passage. This voyage, which could last anywhere from 6 weeks to 3 months, was a nightmare. Disease, malnutrition, and despair were rampant. Many died from dysentery, smallpox, or simply from heartbreak. Those who survived the journey often arrived in the Americas physically and emotionally broken. The Middle Passage wasn't just a journey across the ocean, it was a descent into hell. It was a testament to the depths of human cruelty and the resilience of the human spirit. It was a journey that stripped Africans of their dignity, their humanity, and their very names, replacing them with numbers and brands. Section 6, toiling in chains, the brutal reality of plantation life. So you made it through the Middle Passage, somehow survived the horrors of that journey. You think, okay, maybe things will get better now. Spoiler alert, they don't. You're now on a plantation in the Americas, stripped of your identity, your culture, your very name. You're now just another cog in the machine of European colonialism, another body to exploit, another soul to crush. Plantation life was brutal. Enslaved Africans worked from sun-up to sundown, 6 days a week, under the watchful eyes of overseers who thought nothing of using violence to maintain control. They were treated like animals, denied even the most basic human rights. Families were torn apart, children separated from their mothers, husbands from their wives. The psychological toll of this separation, the constant fear, the relentless brutality, it's almost unimaginable. And yet amidst this unimaginable suffering, the spirit of resistance flickered. Enslaved Africans found ways to hold on to their humanity, their culture, their hope. They sang songs of freedom, told stories of their homeland, and passed down their traditions from generation to generation. Section 7, Scars on a Nation, the enduring legacy of slavery in Ghana. The transatlantic slave trade wasn't just some distant historical event, some abstract tragedy. It left deep scars on Ghana, wounds that still haven't fully healed. The trade decimated Ghana's population, ripped apart its social fabric, and fueled conflict and instability. Think about it. Millions of people, the youngest, strongest, most able-bodied, were taken away, gone. That's a massive loss of human potential, of creativity, of innovation. It's like someone came in and just sucked the life out of the entire nation. The slave trade also distorted Ghana's economy. It shifted the focus from traditional industries like agriculture and crafts to the capture and trade of human beings. It made some African rulers wealthy, yes, but at a horrific cost. The betrayal of their own people, the undermining of their own societies. Section 8, a trade abolished but not forgotten. The transatlantic slave trade was officially abolished in the 19th century, but its legacy continues to haunt us. The racism, the inequality, the exploitation, these are all rooted in that dark chapter of human history. We can't just brush it under the rug and pretend it didn't happen. We have to confront it, learn from it, and fight against its lingering effects. In Ghana, there's a growing movement to remember and honor the victims of the slave trade. Monuments and museums stand as powerful reminders of the horrors of the past, while educational programs are working to ensure that future generations never forget. But remembrance is not enough. We must also work to address the ongoing legacy of slavery in the form of systemic racism, economic inequality, and the continued exploitation of Africa's resources. We must fight for justice, for equality, and for a world where every human being is treated with dignity and respect. Section 9. Remembering the past, shaping the future. The transatlantic slave trade was a horrific chapter in human history, a stain on our collective conscience. But amidst the darkness, there are also stories of resilience, of resistance, of the enduring human spirit. It's up to us to remember those stories, to honor the victims, and to fight for a better future. Ghana, once a hub of the slave trade, is now a beacon of hope and progress in Africa. It's a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable adversity, the human spirit can endure, can overcome, can thrive. Let's learn from the past, let's fight for justice, and let's build a future where every human being is free. Peace out.